Okay. Okay. Good evening, friends, and welcome to this week-long National Science Day celebration. In fact, we started it yesterday by inaugurating one exhibition on the occasion of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav and showing 75 years of Indian science and technology achievements. But before, we have a lecture today by Professor B. N. Jagatap. But before we go further, let me request and invite our director, Shri Subrata Chaudhary, to start the program by saying few words on this occasion. Sir, over to you. Sir, mute, you are on mute.
Thank you, Mr. Kumar. Good evening, Dr. Jagatap, distinguished guests, dear friends, and other dignitaries present in the web. On behalf of Nehru Science Center, I welcome you all to today's program. In fact, today's program is a part of the celebration of National Science Day on the theme Integrated Approach in Science and Technology for Sustainable Future. We have been doing a number of programs during the period from 21st February to 28th February. And in fact, Nehru Science Center, which was formally dedicated to the nation in the year 1985 by the then Prime Minister of India, Sri Rajiv Gandhi, has come a long way since then. In fact, its open science park was a trendsetter for the global science museum movement, being the first of its kind, not only in India, but in the entire world. This science park has inspired science centers in USA and other countries to adopt this concept. Incidentally, UNESCO also recognized this concept as a unique informal learning ambience. With such important path-breaking milestone, Nehru Science Center has come a long way to establish itself as a spectacularly developed hub of non-formal science activities of this region. As a part of such initiative, today we have arranged this program in collaboration with National Council for Science and Technology Commission, Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, Rajiv Gandhi Science and Technology Commission, Government of Maharashtra. Today we have with us Professor B. N. Jagatap. He is the Professor of Department of Physics of Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay. He will be enlightening us on the topic Securing Our Future and Nature's Future. This topic reminds me of a very typical, I should say the theory, Gaia theory of the ancient Greek civilization. The crux of this theory is that if we handle nature badly, nature will also take revenge on us. I'm sure that Professor Jagatap will take us through his lecture, touching upon all these issues to sensitize the citizens of tomorrow, the young people who are here in maximum numbers. And I welcome all of you to enjoy this one. Before we go to the main section of today's program, I will request my colleague, Mr. Umesh Kumar, who is Curator G and the head of our education section, to introduce today's speaker to the audience. Thank you, Mr. Kumar.
Thank you, sir. I think all of our audience, they are aware why we are celebrating and what is the occasion. National Science Day we celebrate in the year 1987 and to commemorate the famous discovery, which is also known as Raman effect, in the year 1928 by Sir C.V. Raman, for which he got the Nobel Prize also in 1930. In fact, the organizing one of the objective of organizing such lectures during this interaction and means giving the platform, interactive platform between scientists and the students is. I remember one incident. Uh, Once we had one national science seminar, and where top one students from each union territory or state selected. They came here in Mumbai, and director of IIT Bombay, he was addressing them. In fact, the child, one of the participants, he not only got the prize, but he got so inspired by having that interaction that he decided that he will pursue the career further. And he, fortunately, with his efforts, he got the admission in IIT Bombay. And later on, we interacted maybe after I think many years back, and he's recorded in our that Souvenir magazine, which became I think in the year 2013. So that's one of the idea. Means it's just one example. There are many people who have got inspiration by interacting with such learned people. That's one. So, and in fact, it's my personal experience. I've heard Professor Jagatap many times. It's always a pleasure and a treat to listen to him. The kind he present all those things. So it's an honor, in fact, for us to have Professor Jagatap on our platform. And I'll just introduce him briefly. As Sir has already told you, he's from Department of Physics, Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay. Further to that, until 2016, he served as distinguished scientist and director chemistry group at Baba Atomic Research Center in Mumbai. A couple of lines more, sir. I know you have given the options for that, but I will just, because there are many young children, just to tell them, he is the recipient of awards and honors, including Homi Bhabha Award for Science and Technology, Senior Visiting Fellow of Center for Chemical Physics in Canada, Professor Raya Dastidhar Award for Atomic and Molecular Physics, Platinum Jubilee Lecture Award of Indian Science Congress, H. Jagadguru Shankaracharya Award for National Eminence, ASG Jaker Award of India Science Foundation, etc. Currently, he is also associated with councils and committees on higher education. He is co-author of a book entitled Re-Engineering Higher Education in Maharashtra. This is a very small one, but there are many lectures on YouTube also. I'll request those who are here, whenever you get time, please listen to them. With this brief introduction, I'll request Professor Jagatap to start his deliberation and take over this one. Sir, over to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Rastagi. It's indeed a pleasure to interact with the young generation on the very important topic, that is on the sustainability. Let me start sharing my slides. Well, my young friends and fellow science communicators, let me take you to a journey. And this journey is towards securing our future and nature's future. It's a wonderful picture there, what you are seeing. And this is where the nature and this person are in so much harmony with each other. And this is exactly what we want for our future generation and the next generation too. Now, let me begin this presentation by asking a few questions to the young people. The first question is, when did plants, animals, birds, or human beings appear first on the earth? It's a very interesting subject. You can go onto the internet, Google, and find out. And those answers I'm providing you here. The plants on the land are about 70 crore years ago. They appeared on the earth. Of course, the plants in the seas appeared much before. The modern birds are about 6 crore years ago. See the kind of time span that this species have spent on the earth. Elephants appeared much earlier. It's about 5.6 crore years. Tigers are recent ones. But then if you ask for the early human being, which is about 200,000 to 300,000 years ago, these were called the Homo sapiens. And then the modern human beings, these are our ancestors, they are 50,000 to 60,000 years ago, they appeared on this planet. So you can see we are the youngest species on this planet. everything else is older than us. Now, in the same breath, let's ask the next question. How many years more will plants, animals, birds, and human beings live on Earth? Now, we would like to answer this question as forever. But there is a question mark. This question mark because scientists say it is doubtful. And they further say that our activities on Earth have destroyed the nature and are continuing to destroy the nature. And therefore, the existence of all this life on the Earth for 100 years or 200 years, more than that, is doubtful. The damage we have done is so much that the collapse of the living system on the Earth appears inevitable in about 100 to 200 years from now. Some people would like to put it as 50 to 100 years, but let's be optimistic and put it as 200 years. But 200 years is very little span compared to the crores of years all these species have lived on this Earth. This is the problem that we are going to discuss today. Now, what is that problem? This you all know. Let me put some figures, facts and figures. This is our globe. This is our Earth. And we are 800 crore people on this Earth. And we all want to develop. We want to progress. For this progress, we take resources from this Earth, use it for our development, and the waste generated is also released within the premises of the globe. We don't send it anywhere else. Now, this is a common knowledge. However, we'll start putting some numbers. The resources include land, air, mineral resources, all kinds of things, and how much resources we use. The land use, the 50% of the land use is for agriculture. And the urbanization, the settlements, which is annual growth rate is about 7% per year. And both the things are contributing to the loss of biodiversity. The second thing is how many resources we use per year. I will just give you some ballpark figures. You can find other numbers for yourself. Oil, we extract 3,600 crore barrels of oil every year. The iron ore, the total amount we dig out from the earth is 254 crore tons. The coal is 900 crore tons. Huge, gigantic amounts we are taking out from this earth. And in return, what do we give to this earth? The waste. And how much waste do we generate every year? Some ballpark figures, the carbon dioxide is about 3,500 crore tons. We release it to the atmosphere. Nitric oxide, 2.4 crore tons. And annually, we release chemicals in water, which amount to near about 1 crore tons, and out of which 20% are carcinogenic. Carcinogenic meaning they cause cancer. Now you can see the picture that the resources, they are finite, and we are using so many resources. The atmosphere, the air, the water, we are polluting with such a gigantic amount of waste. And this is what has created the problem for our own survival and also for the nature's survival. And on top of it, the human population has been growing. You can see here in 1800, now why we use 1800 as the reference year is the Industrial Revolution in Europe started in 1800. So before that, the human being was in harmony with the nature, and then the industrialization picked up, and that was used for the progress, economic progress and prosperity of human being. And therefore, we use that year as a landmark year. So we were 100 crores in 1800. 800. And in 2021, we count 800 crores. So 8 times the population has increased, and it is keeping on increasing. Now, this is a problem. On one hand, resources are limited. The population is increasing. We need prosperity. We need economic progress. How do we balance this out? That has been the big question. And remember, this question has not been asked today. This question was first time asked in 1972. There is a wonderful work which is called, there is a report, go on to the internet, read about it, the limits to growth. What these scientists did at that time was they took these limited resources, the pollution, the population growth, availability of food, and all these parameters they use to predict what would happen by 2100, by 2100. And look, this is a bit speculative, although some of the effects we have started seeing today and in a much more rigorous way. Now you can see here, the resources over the years will drop because the resources are finite. The food per capita will grow and then it will fall. The industrial output will fall. Then pollution will grow. And then at some point of time, the industrial output will become unsustainable, population will reduce, and therefore the pollution will drop. And the population will grow up to a point and then it will start decreasing. This is up to 2100 was the prediction. And you can extrapolate it further and you will find that the extinction of the nature and the human being on this earth, that is where it has become questionable. This alarms existed in 1972. However, we were so much taken by the economic prosperity. We believed that the science and technology, the way we adopt and the way we use, can take us to an almost perpetual progress and perpetual economic prosperity. We did not listen to these prophecies. Let me just tell you in short how much damage we have done to the environment. Now, only one indicator is sufficient to give the idea, and that is what is often talked about. That is the carbon dioxide in atmosphere. And here is a table, year and the percentage of carbon dioxide in atmosphere. At the start of the Industrial Revolution, that is 1800, the atmospheric carbon dioxide was 0.028%. By 1960, it became 0.0316%. By 2013, it became, for the first time, the carbon dioxide in Earth's atmosphere crossed the limit of 0.04%. And in 2020, this is 0.04125%. And if the business goes as usual, by 2050, we'll have carbon dioxide in the atmosphere at 0.052%. And we all know the carbon dioxide gives rise to the global warming and there is a temperature rise. And the average increase in the global temperature in 2020 is 1.19 degrees centigrade. That is in respect of this 1800 year. That is the start of Industrial Revolution. And by 2050, the global temperature will rise to 3.2 degrees centigrade. We know that the Paris Agreement said that we need to limit the increase in temperature to 1.5 degrees centigrade. That is all what we can have to sustain life on this earth. Whereas by 2050, if everything goes on as it is, we will be facing a temperature increase of 3.2 degrees centigrade. The global warming is not the only issue. The excess carbon dioxide in the atmosphere also dissolves in the seas. And you know that carbon dioxide, when it dissolves in water, forms the carbolic acid. And therefore, the pH of the seawater has started dropping. It was 8.21 in 1800. That's in pre-industrial days. Now we are talking about some figure like 8.1. This is what is called as the acidification of the oceans. And that is also creating a great danger to the species living in the oceans. Now, we are told there are so many effects of global warming. I'll bring to you some pictures. And these pictures you must have already seen. The melting of glaciers, this is reported. The melting of ice seas. With the melting of ice seas and the glaciers, there is going to be the rising of sea levels. And therefore, the cities will get submerged. Now, this is one issue Indians need to worry about because we have 7,500 kilometer long coastal line. So all that population is at a risk of rising sea levels. And another important thing that we are experiencing are the devastating and frequent cyclones. And in case of India, this is also creating a problem not only to the human being, but also to the crop loss, also to the ecosystem around us. Well, the global warming is not the only issue that we face. We have a pollution everywhere. Our cities are polluted. There are oil spills, which is endangering the sea life. The water bodies are contaminated because of the industrial pollution, and the rivers are dying. Ganga is just one example we keep talking about, and cleaning Ganga is also one example we keep talking about. But most of the rivers in India are dying because of this domestic and industrial pollution. And we have this problem of the solid waste, the plastic waste, the metal scrap, the automobile scrap, construction material. If you go to New Mumbai, Navi Mumbai, the mangroves, they are being destroyed by this debris of the construction material. Electronic waste is another huge problem. And another one is the agricultural waste. This picture is that of a rice husk ash. If you go in Punjab, or even if you go to Nagpur area, you'll find piles of this rice husk ash on the streets. So this is the problem that we are facing in all around. The accessibility of water. Now I'm talking only about the Indian scenario. The 54% of India is facing high to extremely high water stresses. And the cities are no exceptions. This water stress is everywhere. About 100 million, that's 10 crore people, live in areas of very poor water quality. And 60 crore people in India are at the risk of surface water disruption. 60 crore means half of India's population. And there's a report which says that out of 632 districts in India, which were examined for determining the water quality, only 59 districts have safe water. Others, you have contamination of chloride, fluoride, iron, arsenic, nitrate contamination. You must also correlate this to the global warming. As the average temperature of the earth is going up, the atmosphere is going up, this increase in the temperature also makes the diffusion of arsenic, uranium into our water bodies. And that is making the water that much unsafe. And we have a shrinking biodiversity. I have brought here 4 pictures. These are the 4 endangered plants in India. The Malabar mahogany, mostly. The red sandalwood, you must have watched that great movie Pushpa, and that is that about the smuggling of this red sandalwood. And that is now an endangered plant in India. And ebony, these are all being used or misused for small economic gains. This is the picture that we have today. Now, since I'm talking to the students, let me give you two scenarios. Let me consider that we have a deposit of about 10 crores in the bank, and one person requires 25,000 rupees per month as his basic requirement to live. And assume that every person lives for 75 years. Now let's consider 2 scenarios. The first scenario is we have the 10 crores, 25,000 rupees per month multiplied by 12 multiplied by 75 will turn out to be 2.25 crores. So a person A uses 2.25 crores in his lifetime. What is left is 7.75 crores. Now in the next generation, you have 2 people, B and C, each require 2.25 crores. What will happen? After 75 years, the kitty will be just 3.25 crores. And in that generation, you have D and E, they require 2.25 crores each. And then you see that the kitty is much less than what is required by these 2 people. So the needs of the next generation are not met in this scenario. Let's consider another scenario. In this scenario, everybody uses this deposit and also makes an economic progress and adds the same kitty, same amount to the kitty. So A uses 2.25 crores, but also in his 75 years adds 2.25 crores to the kitty. In the next generation, you have this 10 crore intact. In the next generation, you have B and C, each one use 2.25 crores each, but also add 2.25 crores each to the kitty. In the next generation, you again have the 10 crore. Now, in this particular scenario, the needs of the next generation will always be met. And this is the distinction that we make. The first picture is unsustainable because at some point of time, the needs of the next generations are not met. Whereas the picture on the right is a sustainable picture. In all generations, you have the resources available. And that is where we make the definitions. What is sustainability? Sustainability is the capacity to exist and progress. Not only exist, we need to also progress without the fear of becoming extinct. So we must continue forever. We must exist. At the same time, we should make progress. And as we have seen, our activities have made our and nature's existence unsustainable. And therefore, we bring in the concept called sustainable development. What is sustainable development? It is a development that meets needs of the present generation without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So whatever activities we do in our generation, it should not leave the nature and also the resources in a manner that the next generation cannot meet their own needs. So in the previous slide, we had seen those 2 scenarios, out of which the right-hand scenario is what is the sustainable development. And remember one thing, that anyone says that to have sustainable development, we need to curb everything. No, this is not the way to look at the sustainable development, because we also need to have the economic prosperity. So the economic prosperity and progress and sustainability, the nature and our existence, they are not to be taken as in conflict with each other, but we should take them as two sides of the same coin. And that is the challenge that we have today. And therefore, the 21st century is regarded as the century for sustainable development. Now, there are two questions. The first question is that we keep telling people that, well, trees, they do take care of carbon dioxide. So why do we worry so much about this carbon dioxide? Now, this is where some ballpark figures will have to generate. Now, the carbon dioxide that we generate today, if you want to consume it, and if you want to consume it using the trees, the forests, what are going to be the estimates? Now, these numbers you must remember. Per person, we will require 730 trees to take care of all that carbon dioxide which is generated to the industrial, our day-to-day life and all that. You require 730 trees per person. And that means if you need 730 trees, it amounts to 7 acres of forest land. Is about 100 trees you can have in 1 acre. So 7 acres of forest land. What is the world population today? 800 crores. That means the forest land required for mitigating all that carbon dioxide we produce is 5,600 crore acres. That's the kind of land you require. What is the total land on the earth? 12,600 crore acres. Now, out of which 5,600 crore acres we should reserve for forest. That means, in order to take care of all that carbon dioxide, we shall require 50% of the earth covered by the forest. Now, as we have seen earlier, 50% of the land is used for food production. Then we need land for our settlements, our cities, our villages for living. So we certainly cannot have this 50% of the earth covered by the forest. How much forest land we have on the earth today? It's about 1,000 crore acres. What it means? We need 5,600 crores and we have only 1,000 crores. That means it is just 18% of the requirement. This gives you an idea that whatever carbon dioxide we produce, only 18 to 20% of that is taken care by the forest cover. Rest 80% is staying in the atmosphere, and that is what is contributing to the global warming. So what is the lesson now? Well, first lesson certainly is we need to conserve and grow forest land. We should not encroach the forest land, whatever is existing, which is 18% of our today's requirement. However, you can see the urbanization, settlements, they are destroying our forest land. And second lesson we have is minimize our carbon dioxide production drastically. So just one indicator, that is the carbon dioxide, tells us lots of stories about how we should be treating our nature and how should we be living in harmony with the nature. Second question that we ask is sustainability only dependent on the climate action? So this is an idea that is now taken deep roots, that if you do the climate action, we take care of the pollution, we take care of carbon dioxide primarily, and do something to limit the temperature, the rise in temperature of this planet, then that's enough. And therefore, we keep talking about different energy sources. This is some energy sources are carbon dioxide producing, some are not, some are benign, and so on and so forth. Is it true? Now, this is not true. Now you have a picture where the human beings and nature are supposed to be in harmony with each other. But there are so many human beings, and they themselves need to be in harmony with each other. So any sustainability should also include the harmony between the human beings on this planet. And what is that harmony dependent on? That harmony is dependent on economic growth and social justice. So only climate action will not help us to sustain ourselves. But we need economic growth. People should get food. There should be no poverty. There should be enough jobs, and also social justice, the equality. If there is no equality, then there is no sustainability. So now we talk about sustainability encompassing three things: the environment, the economic growth, and social justice. These three things are extremely important. Now you can think, if there is no social justice, it also indirectly does harm to our nature, not only to our own existence. You must have seen that the unemployed youth, they had done riots about a month ago, and they burned trains and so on and so forth. It creates a lot of disruption in the society and also destroys the national property and also nature. A poor person is likely to destroy nature to satisfy his own needs. And that is what you learn from that movie Pushpa, that those poor people, they enter into the smuggling of red sandalwood. So the social justice is also an important element. So if you take the economics, social justice, and the climate action, then you can secure our future and nature's future together. And this is what has been the thinking for last 30 years. Let me give you, there is a statement, there is a buzzword called Agenda 2030. What is Agenda 2030? That is something that we want to achieve by 2030, and we means the whole world population. Now, after 80s, when we started understanding the effects of global warming and human activities on nature, the first international effort was in 1992, and that was the UN Conference on Environment and Development. In 2000, year 2000, the United Nations adopted the Millennium Development Goals. And in 2015, the two things happened. One was the Paris Agreement on the Climate, and United Nations General Assembly adopted 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And that is the agenda of 2030. We have just 8 more years to go. And we should know what is that Agenda 2030. So the whole idea, as I have said, is the sustainability rests on 3 pillars: climate action, the economic progress, and social justice. And all these 3 will have to be integrated. And that integration will give rise to the sustainability of nature and human beings. Now, what are the sustainable development goals? Let me keep counting. There's, as I said, there are 17. The first one is no poverty. Second, no hunger. Third, good health for everybody. Fourth is quality education. In order to save nature and save ourselves, we need the generations, next generations, educated, who understand the problems that we are facing, and they will work to eliminate this problem. Gender equality. The sixth is a clean water and sanitation for everybody. Seventh is the renewable energy, the solar energy, wind energy. Today we are talking about hydrogen energy. Eighth, and this is important, in order to have a sustainability, you need to have good jobs, and good jobs will be provided if you have the economic growth. Ninth is the innovation and infrastructure. These goals, to be satisfied, you require innovations and you require sustainable infrastructure. Tenth is a reduced inequality. As we have said, if there is an inequality, then it will create a harm to the sustainability. Our cities have become unsustainable, and therefore 11th goal is sustainable cities and communities. The 12th goal is responsible consumption. It is not said that you reduce your consumption, but be responsible. Change the pattern of your consumption. That is all what it says. 13th is the climate action that we all know. 14th is worrying about the life below water. Land. 16th is peace and justice, and create institutions which can give rise to justice and environmental justice together. And satisfied only if there is a partnership. There is a national partnership as well as international partnership to meet the goals. So these are the 17 goals which have been put forward as Agenda 2030, and all of them constitute the sustainable development goals. So it is not only the climate action that we are looking at. We are looking at an integrated view of the human development and preservation of our nature. Now, these 17 goals, if you want to achieve, and in a shorter time like 2030, will require fresh inputs from science and technology. The earlier idea of using science and technology for our own growth as well as economic prosperity suffered from very fundamental and wrong assumption. What was that assumption? It assumed that the resources are infinite, and the sink where we are putting all this waste material is also infinite. We know today that resources are not infinite, the sink is not infinite, everything is going to stay around us, and everything around us is going to get depleted, and therefore we'll need now new elements of science and technology which can further these 17 goals. And therefore, this year, 2022, is celebrated as International Year of Basic Sciences for Sustainable Development. And this is United Nations General Assembly in its meeting held in December 2021 declared that the year 2022 will be devoted as the International Year of Basic Sciences for Sustainable Development. And this is the year where we need to bring out those connections between basic sciences, technology, and sustainable development goals. And that's a big challenge for the scientists. And rightfully, the Department of Science and Technology has taken the same topic on board for celebration of the National Science Day. That is integrated approach in science and technology for sustainable future. However, I would like to remind you here that this year should not be only celebrated. Celebration means you enjoy and then forget about the responsibilities on. No, this century is that of a sustainable development. And therefore, this year, and in particular the National Science Day, we need to use as for chalking out what is going to be our plan for sustainable future, what is going to be our action plan. And that is where we shall be successful. So we need a new way for science and technology that cares for people as well as for nature. Now, since I am talking to school children, I'm not going to be very technical. What is that new way of science and technology? However, I shall mention few topics here and there. Uh, at the same time, you remember what I said earlier, that the way we have used science and technology so far, we thought that the resources are infinite, the sink is infinite, and therefore we can get prosperity perpetually. However, that basic assumption is wrong. And therefore, with the limited resources and the sink that you have for the waste materials, we need to organize our science and technology so that we can care for the people as well as for the nature. We have the economic development as well as the saving of the nature around us. Now, for last 30 years, this particular issue has captured the scientists across the globe. I would say in a disappointed tone that in India, this particular subject has not got. And this subject is called sustainability science. Now, this is not a very different science, but it's a science that cares for the sustainability. It tries to evolve different types of scientific and technological tools so that we can satisfy the sustainability development goals. And mind you, this field is about 30-year-old. Now, what are the questions asked? Now, from the discussion so far, you would know what are the questions that are asked in this field. How can we improve access to water of adequate quality and quantity to all the people in the world? How can we go for clean energy and also clean manufacturing? See, there is a terminology which is used that is called what is the carbon intensity of your economy? What is the carbon intensity means? Whatever is your GDP, gross domestic product, per unit of gross domestic product, how much carbon dioxide are you producing? If your manufacturing is ancient, it is not modern, it is polluting manufacturing process, then the carbon intensity of your country is going to be high. How do we mitigate health impacts of pollution and environmentally mediated diseases? Last 2 years, we have seen the COVID-19 cases. So now there are several things which could come in the future, and also there are pollution-related diseases. How are we going to take care of that? How do we enhance agricultural production and food security? If no hunger, that means we need to have food security. However, to ensure that food security, you cannot encroach on the forest lands. In fact, you need to reduce your agricultural land. How do you do that? And that requires a sustainable agricultural practices with enhanced food production. How do we handle the problem of congested and polluted cities? What are the technologies? What is the science and technology that we're going to use? How do we effectively use environmental and natural resources to reduce poverty? So the resources are going to be only from the environment, the oxygen or mineral resources, but we need to use them effectively and reduce poverty. Can we create climate conserving ecosystem services? Now we see this goes beyond what we are thinking today in India. That can there be a service which can help to do this climate conserving ecosystem and protecting biodiversity? I have posed here only a few questions. There are several questions which people are asking in the sustainability science. Now, we'll just sensitize you that even the Nobel Prizes in recent years have started going for those works which are towards the sustainability. This is important thing that the Indian scientists need to worry. 2021 Nobel Prize in Physics, it has gone to 3 people, out of which half the Nobel Prize has gone to those 2 people for physical modeling of Earth's climate, quantifying variability and reliably predicting global warming. You can also see 2021 Chemistry Nobel Prize. It has gone to these 2 gentlemen for their development of organocatalysis. This has had a great impact on pharmaceutical research and has made chemistry greener. Greener chemistry is an objective of the Sustainable Development Goal. And if you go just 1 or 2 years before, the Economic Nobel Prize 2018, it has gone for integrating climate change into long-run macroeconomic analysis. How this climate change is going to affect the GDPs of various countries. Now you can see that the world is going in a direction which I would call is the right direction. We need to worry about ourselves, our own existence, and the existence of the nature around us, and the people who work for it. They deserve the highest honor in science. And that is what the Nobel Prize Committee has also admitted, and they are also doing their bit in this. So this is that sustainability science that needs to take root in this country. Now let me have some words on India and Sustainable Development Goals. Remember, by 2030, we are signatory to this document, the Agenda 2030. Energy. Now, if you take the share of the fossil fuels in the primary energy consumption in India, it is 91%. And share of fossil fuels in electricity production is 75%. So you can see how much carbon footprint we have. Now, as a part of the Paris Agreement, India has committed to achieve 40% share of non-fossil fuels in electricity generation. So out of 75%, which is currently the fossil fuel contribution to the electricity generation, 40% will be from the non-fossil fuels. So from 25%, we'll go over to 40%. By 2040, we expect that the renewables will contribute 55%. And what is that energy mix that we are thinking? Maybe solar energy, wind energy, hydrogen energy, ethanol energy, and also the nuclear energy. However, we are pretty much quiet here that it is not only the electricity as an energy that we consume. We consume a lot of energy in other sources, like our transport system runs on the oil, which is essentially the fossil fuel. And that's why this number, the share of fossil fuels in the primary energy consumption, which combines all the energy sources, is 91%. Now, as a sustainable development goal, we also need to provide the people of this country clean energy. As a clean energy. Now, currently, the electricity consumption is about 1,000 kilowatt hour per capita. This is a yearly consumption. And it is projected that we will raise it to 1,500 kilowatt hour per capita in 2030. So there will be 50% addition to that. In case of water, we need to do a lot of things. See, India has about 16% of the world's population. However, it contains only 4% of the world's freshwater reservoirs. And therefore, the picture which I had shown you earlier, 54% of India faces high to acute water shortage. 60 crore people are at the risk of water disruption. Over 10 crore people are living in the areas of poor water quality. nearly three-fourths of villages lack access to piped drinking water. Pollution has affected 75% of our water resources. And this pollution is not only from the industry, it's also the agricultural pollution, the fertilizers, insecticides, they're all polluting the water resources. Rivers are dying, and we are paying a huge economic cost. It is stated that if we don't correct this situation, the India will lose annually 6% in its GDP. Talk about our cities. You know, 14 out of 15 worst polluted cities are in India. 20 lakh people die every year due to pollution. And the average particulate matter, what we call as PM 2.5, that is the particulate matter on an average size of 2.5 micron, is 68 micrograms per meter cube. In many cities in India, breathing is difficult. If you talk about the poverty and health, these are all the sustainable development goals. The number of poor in India is about 13 crore. And how the poverty is defined? It is any person whose daily income is less than $2 on purchase parity. $2 is about 150 rupees, and the dollar rupee purchase parity is about 4 to 5 rupees. $1 is 4 to 5 rupees. So that's about 50 rupees per day is the yardstick that we use. 14% children are undernourished. 14 lakh children die every year before their fifth birthday. And all these new diseases like diabetes, cancer, heart and lung diseases, there is a high mortality. This is about 22%. And in terms of unemployment, we are currently having an unemployment of 7%. And among the educated, the unemployment rate is about 24%. If you talk about biodiversity, about India is a house to 2,603 tree species, which are ethnic to India, out of which nearly 18% are threatened with extinction. So can we achieve the Agenda 2030? Yes, certainly. But for that, we need to work hard. And we need to join hands. This is the only way we can attain this Agenda 2030. And therefore, I always narrate to the students that there are grand India-centric challenges, and we are doing nothing about it. The drinking water, these are all in the sustainable development. Water management, environment and pollution, regenerative and climate resilient agriculture, renewable energy, disaster management, improving industrial productivity. There are lots of issues specific to urbanization, technologies for smart cities and villages, technology-based entrepreneurship, artificial intelligence, big data science for the social sector, affordable healthcare, waste management, biodiversity and natural products, also education technology. These are the areas which are important for this country. And we have not been telling our youngsters that, look, your opportunities for future are here. If you develop something and if you create your entrepreneurship, this is where you can do it more effectively. And I always give that punchline to the students that, look, to understand science, you don't have to go to Mars, you don't have to go to Moon, you don't have to go anywhere. The science is around you. And that science around you, you need to understand. And understand in what way you can solve these problems and these grand India-centric challenges. In your lifetime, if you can solve one problem, you will make good for yourself and also for our society. Now, this is what is narrated by Nicole Morio. He's the president of International Program on Basic Sciences of UNESCO. And what he said, it's very, very important and, and pertinent to our country. In developing countries, thousands of young minds are ready to assimilate the basic sciences and design progress necessary for a more harmonious development. Well, there are lots of youngsters in India who want to learn basic sciences. However, we need to give them a little bit of the design aspect. How do you design with the and basic sciences with the design perspective? You are the people who can find out the solutions for this. And the science, so what we need to do, science to technology to the sustainable development goals. And this will create the entrepreneurship, jobs, markets, and strong workforce for sustainability. And my advice to the young generation is that the West generated technologies which created pollution. And we bought those technologies, merely used them for 60, 70, 100 years and polluted our own environment. Whereas the same West is working on the sustainable technologies for last 30 years. So in next 10 years, if you don't develop this, they're again ready to sell those technologies to you. Are we going to be at the buying end all the time? This is the question that the scientists and the technologists of this country should ask. In last 70 years, we have been making a statement that we have missed this bus, we have missed this bus, we have missed this, we have missed the semiconductor bus, we have missed, and this is now another bus we are going to miss. And the next generation is going to curse us that how many buses you have missed. This should not happen. So this is the way forward for India for advancing the sustainable development goals together with accruing demographic dividend. We talk about 65% people in this country are less than 35 years. Those 35-year-old people require jobs and all that. And those jobs are in the sustainable development. This is what we should not forget. Now, finally, how can you help in achieving sustainable future? So my young friends, I have only two advices. First is sustainability begins at home. And first and foremost, I'm going to advise eat environmentally friendly foods. What is environmentally friendly foods? Now, you see, there are some foods which require a lot of water. For example, if you take sugarcane, it requires plenty of water compared to some jowar, bajra, or some millets that India grows in plenty. So, if you start eating the environmentally friendly food, then you are going to reduce that water consumption. It's so scarce. Remember, 75% of India's freshwater reserves are used only for agriculture. And there are these water guzzling crops. And anyway, these environment-friendly foods are also healthy. Do not waste food. The food, there is a carbon footprint. Save electricity. Consume thoughtfully, generate minimum waste. Recycle waste. Use public transport. Use internet wisely. When I go to any college for giving lecture, I'll find there lots of students on their mobiles. And you know, the internet is a guzzler of energy. Use it wisely. Count your carbon footprint and make corrections and spread the message of sustainability. And second one, you are young, study well, develop skills. And what specific skills that you need to develop? This, our national education policy keeps talking about it. Develop critical thinking and problem solving. What is that? It is simply like this, that if you go onto the street and if you find there is a garbage piled up, then you should have some thinking about it. Don't blame municipal corporation. Start thinking that how can I get rid of it? how can I solve this? If you see there are potholes on the road, ask the question that can I create a material which can fill these potholes, and that material is going to be economically viable. Think about it and solve that problem. You will make your life and also solve the India's problem. And that is where you understand the challenges before you and find the solutions. So this is all what I wanted to say. With this, I would say the young generation, it is your time to lead. And this lead, what we are going to lead, is for our well-being and also nature's well-being. Whatever mistake our generation or the previous generations have done in science and technology, also in the consumption and production, don't repeat those mistakes. And this is your time to lead. With this, I'll close this presentation with a big thank you to all.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Sir, this sir, would you like to say something?
In fact, I went back to my earlier days. I was really mesmerized. That much I can tell you. Wonderful. In fact, in so simple languages, you can present a very critical situation. That's really wonderful.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. In fact, yeah, there's one word which is called pitch deck presentation, where you put all things in a very short span, or we can call it as a sustainable lecture in terms of science, technology, and then explaining to young children what this, because this is also, many times we talk about sustainability, but they really don't understand what actually it means so far as development and other things are concerned. But the way he has put up with that mathematical calculation with two models, two scenario, perhaps every child, or even those who are not, they might have read the definition, but they will understand what actually the sustainability means. That without having the fear of extinction, we can develop, but we need to see that our young generation, they should not curse that what we have left for them. So we'll take some questions. Actually, I could see many, but they were answering in between to each other. There were some, let me see in the chat box if some questions we can find. Because there are many school children. One question is from Adyan Deshpande, sir, whether acid rain will also cause increase of global warming.
Yeah, there is going to be acid rains, but what acid rain is going to do, basically, it is going to make our oceans and the land more acidic. And that's, see, the natural, our ecosystem is trained to work at certain pH, the acidic conditions, the basic conditions. And it is a minute change in that, it's going to change the whole dynamics. And therefore, acid rains is also going to be a worry in the sustainable development. Very true? Just like ocean acidification.
Actually, his name is something different, but how can we stop, sir, from outside, from our side? What are the steps we should take to avoid this? I think it was during the lecture when we were you were presenting those pictures, how oil spill, pollution. I think Sarah has already explained that for children also.
Yeah, I'll just simply add one more thing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Go onto the internet and Google for how do I calculate my carbon footprint. Okay, so there will be a carbon footprint calculator, and then you say that I travel every day for this many kilometers by a vehicle. Then it will give you how much carbon dioxide you are adding to the atmosphere. You say this is the food I am eating every day. So in a in a day, how much carbon dioxide you are adding to the atmosphere, you will know an estimate of it. Okay, keep doing that, and then you can see how much you can reduce on that.
Sir, actually, we made one gallery where we used to show, for example, when you are drinking one glass of the milk or maybe a small cup of coffee. In fact, how much water is involved on back end. In fact, that also children should learn so that they
Yes.
can understand that even a drop counts. As sir has already told, don't waste food, don't waste anything on your platter. So that if you go in the backside of that, you'll find how much things are involved in that, like the sugar cane you mentioned, how much water, so environment friendly food. So try to understand all those things. In fact, when we are doing a gallery on climate change, there was one software where you put every data of yourself. If you are honest enough, perhaps you will come to know how much
Yeah.
carbon footprint. And be honest to know that it is not necessary that you should bring it to a lower level, but do it by your action.
Yes.
Okay. One question is from Adyan. Which technology we should use to dispose waste?
There are lots of technologies people talk in various domains. For example, if you are worrying about the wastewater, this is one of the biggest problem in India. And if you are from Mumbai, you will understand the gravity of this problem. There are plenty of technologies which are talked about, like the electron beam technology, and people talk about the biotechnologies for that. Well, I am a votary for biotechnology. The reason for this is, see, the idea of wastewater treatment have changed over the years. Earlier, we used to say that, well, to clean water will require energy. Whereas today, there is a talk about energy positive wastewater treatment. That means you generate energy out of these wastewater treatments. You get water, good water, as well as you get some energy out of it. So you're net positive. So these are the various technologies which are being talked about. Also for the solid waste, we require different kinds of technology. And I'll tell you, the total amount of waste metal in India. You see, metals can be reprocessed, reused. It turns out to be about 150,000 crore worth metal scrap is produced in India. Now you can see on the roads, and then if you go to the Bandra Kurla complex, then that side, you'll find so many old cars being discarded and all that. They contain all that aluminum. And this is what we need to recycle. How do we do that? This requires technology. Third thing is electronic products. This is one important area. This electronic waste contains all precious materials. It has gallium, germanium, it has some amount of gold, some rare earths. In Western world, they call it as the urban mining. So instead of going to the nature and mine, you use that electronic waste and isolate all these and reuse them. Now that requires technology. These are not available to us. And this is what we need to develop. In fact, when I was talking to in some college, one student got so much interested. He said, I want to work on this wastewater treatment. And today, he has a company. See, this is the way people develop their futures, by catching up the problems which are around them.
Even question from Arnab. So as you mentioned that we have 50% of land at least reserved for forest in terms of 5,600 crores and then 12,500. So what do you want to know that if we divide 50% to forest, how will the other things like home, factories, they will be divided
Yes.
because of the increasing population?
Yes, yes. That is true. So we cannot see why I brought that example is that generally people say, oh, if there is a problem of carbon dioxide, then plant trees. Yes, we should certainly plant trees. But how many we need to plant? It does not say that you don't plant. You plant, that's going to be help. But the major thing what we need to do is reduce our carbon, reduce the amount of carbon dioxide that we are releasing. And where is that carbon dioxide coming from? Our energy sources, our all the activities. And that is where we require new science now. We require new technologies. These new technologies, for example, all of you must be reading newspapers. 2 weeks ago, Government of India unveiled the hydrogen policy, national hydrogen policy. This is you electrolyze water in a very efficient way, of course, produce your hydrogen and use it for as an energy source. That's going to be entirely a clean energy source. So these are the ways we can take it forward.
She wants want to know that if we go to the olden days, don't you think means our life will get difficult? Is that true?
Yes. I mean, this is something good that you asked this question. I didn't want to accuse the students on this, but let me tell you, the very basis of Western science and technology is to conquer nature, tame nature. See, this is the inherent in that whole idea of Western way of thinking, that we need to tame the nature, we need to conquer. Science and technology is the mightiest weapon that we have with which we can win over the nature. Now that nature was not won, it has retaliated. The Eastern way of thinking, and particularly the Indian way of thinking, is to have a human behavior with the nature. So we had a different way of looking at science and technology. The ancient science and technology, what was developed in India, it was inefficient, yes. However, it was in harmony with nature. And that is what, that element we need to integrate with the modern science and technology and create a new science and technology for us. And we can lead the world in this sense.
Yeah. I think earlier they used to say Oriental science, but
yes,
it's more in harmony with nature, and perhaps that's why many of the things were never patented, because it is from the nature and it should go back to. I think some of them they can read maybe world science history, and perhaps they will come to know much more on that.
Let me tell you, Government of India has a national initiative on this, and committee how to get those ideas from the ancient science and technology, promote it, and also propagate it in the society. So we have been doing some work on that.
Okay. So maybe we can have another session on that.
Where sometime we can talk about it. Yes.
A mixed group. And in fact, we are looking for SRS study. Once we will be open, perhaps many of the schools, if they can come here, large number of schools we can reach, maybe inviting for. Earlier, we used to have 5 students, 1 teacher from each school, and at least there will be some 50 schools. So which will be much bigger in that way. In fact, there are many more questions. Sir, should we take a couple of more, or if you allow, then we can.
Yeah, it's fine. See, I just saw a question there, and answer it yourself. You see, there is one important ability that all students need to develop. I mean, talking in general, and that ability is to estimate things. Now, suppose someone asks you, what is the volume of your classroom? You should not be found wanting. You should say, oh, this height could be about, see, that's the assessment. Oh, height is about 12 feet, the width is this, so it must be around this. This is what is extremely important, and this is what is also called as the Fermi solution in general thing. Sometime I'll talk about it. So suppose if you ask this question, that if you, every family plants 2 trees, how much carbon dioxide we can take care. Now there are, see, the Fermi solution would be something like this. Fermi is that Enrico Fermi, he gave that method of estimating. Oh, there are 800 crore people on the earth. Let's take each family consisting of 4 members. That will make it 200 crore families. So each family plants 2 trees, then that becomes this many crore trees. Now you see that in 1 acre, you can plant 700 trees. Now you can keep calculating that and arrive at a figure, how much carbon dioxide that you can take care of. And you are going to be very close to the figure, actual figure.
Sir, I have one thing to mention. Can we have a session on the traditional knowledge system of this area? Because, you know, this is a very, this area is very rich in biodiversity. Lot of, you know, traditional knowledge systems are there just to educate the, you know, young ones.
Yeah, your idea is well taken. However, I have one issue. I'll tell you. I mean, about 2 months ago, a naval college invited me to talk about Indian traditional knowledge system. I said, look, I can talk about it, but your students are going to go for the merchant navy. So can I talk on ancient India's maritime science and technology? See, the ancient Indian knowledge system is so huge. It's not only the Ayurveda that we talk about. The ancient system of commerce is very different. Ancient system on maritime and the shipbuilding, it stands as its own. The ancient chemistry, way of doing chemistry. So in fact, you should have large number of sessions telling students that, look, this is what Indians did over the years.
Sir, I wanted to tell that something very specific to the state of Maharashtra, the traditional knowledge system.
Oh, yes. I mean, that is...
And only very specific to this region.
Oh, yes. That's very important. And we should attempt to enlighten our students and tell them, surely, I am with you.
Yes. Sir, we can, as Sir has told, maybe there are so many fields. Maybe we can have a series of celebration. In fact, NPCL was also interested that can we have a series of lectures. I think this is a good idea. So we can plan for something in the form of a series on Indian, means ancient traditional knowledge system in different fields, whatever comes on that. Let it be a series, then it will be good. I think it will be amazing to go back to the roots and finding out what we had. So I think we are very close to now 6. We can conclude, and other session means questions will be there. Maybe we'll take out from the chat and sometimes share with Sir, and we can share because most of them are there on our mailing list and contact platform. So thank you very much. In fact, indeed, always a pleasure to listen to you, and we'll put it on YouTube, and people will keep on watching. Maybe once again, we'll approach you for a different session on a different topic. It has been always a phenomenal to listen to you, sir.
Yeah, and thanks a lot for inviting me, and I enjoyed this session.
Thank you.
And thank you all our participants. Please watch our website, and you can visit that. You can see the Facebook page also. There are series of programs right up to 28. There will be lectures also, and on 28th we have Sir Professor Anil Gupta, the innovation former innovation foundation chairman, and he will be talking, and he will also talk about. He has requested that children should come out with some traditional science or knowledge system questions, which they might have heard from their parents or maybe grandparents, and they want to know more about that. They can post those questions. He would like to address some of them during the lecture on that. So looking forward, all of you, children and all our science communicator and fraternity, many of them, thanks for joining us. Looking forward for support as well as guidance and joining on our other programs. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, thanks a lot, and bye.
Thank you very much.